All right, ladies and gentlemen, fans of my network, I would like to welcome you to my new mini-series. This mini-series, I will be focusing on my ideas on the NFL draft from a fan's perspective. This is going to be a multi-part mini-series that I give you guys. It's going to be several episodes long. Go into my playlist area if you want to take a look at all of these from beginning to end. I'm going to try not to drone on for too long when it comes to each of these, which is why I've taken a huge subject to me and broken it up into several different pieces. Some of the things we definitely need to cover before we move on to the further episodes of this mini-series, I would like to mention a few things. For one, I think it's important to mention that I am not an NFL analyst. So I am not somebody who gets paid professionally to do this. Obviously, if you're watching this channel, you know that I'm not somebody who's sponsored by the NFL. I don't have any sponsors. Pretty much what you are getting is a fan's perspective. I have never experienced an NFL draft. I have never gone through that process. I've never known anybody personally who's gone through that process. So I think that's definitely something that needs to be mentioned before you continue on into this series. And basically, all the comments that you guys are going to get are pretty much my own, given you from my perspective on things. My experience throughout the years with draft processes, as far as success and busts go. The individuals that were really hyped, that lived up to the hype, and other individuals that didn't. I've experienced a lot, and some of this is just evaluation on the process that I have experienced throughout that culmination of time. Also, you may agree, you may not necessarily agree with what it is that I have to say, and my goal here is to kind of come out with a little bit of a perspective on the draft that coming from an individual who doesn't necessarily put a whole lot of stock into it, and so this miniseries will explain to you a little bit as to why I don't. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on into the next segment of the series. Alright guys, here we go with another section of my mini-series. We're going to talk, this time around, we're going to discuss scouting talent. This is going to be one of the more interesting and probably one of my more favorite sections of this mini-series that I'm doing. The last two I've saved for the very end. Scouting talent, coupled with the other areas that I have already discussed. We've already discussed the talent evaluation portion, and if you haven't, go back and watch that film because that one's just as important as this one. But when it comes to scouting talent, we're talking about scouting actual game footage, full game footage, not just highlight reel footage. And for those of you that are scouting highlight reel footage, you need to go back and you guys really need to watch the talent evaluation process portion of this mini-series. But assuming that you've seen that, the scouting talent portion, taking a look at the actual DNA portion of a person's play, is going to be in the full game footage, actually taking a look at and all the nuances that go with that. The more film that you consume on a player, the better. Even if it's watching previous year's footage. I rarely do that. Rarely do I take a look at a player's previous year and say, okay, this is going to garner me a much better idea. The only time when I may do that, it may be on accident. So if I notice a particular player on a team that's really good, and all of a sudden I've put him in my notes, it isn't until later I realize, oh, wait a minute, this kid's only a sophomore. He's probably got another year, at least another year, possibly two, left to play in college football. By then, by mistake, do I actually have that expertise on a particular player where I've got a couple years of evaluation going into him. So it's not something that I take a look at a particular guy and say, oh, this guy's really good. I need to go back and watch 2016 and 2015. As well as 2017. So no, I very rarely do in fact, I hardly ever willfully do that. So if anything, it's by mistake. By taking a look at as much film as you possibly can, you take a look at a lot of different nuances. A particular player will play really well against a particular team and then not so well against another. And you have to know exactly why it is that person's doing that. Is it the particular scheme that defense plays in or that offense plays in against your player? Is the person that they're playing against one week really average and the next week really good? All these things come into consideration, and you want to be able to get a really good full spectrum of what type of talent you're going to evaluate, especially when it goes up against an opponent. And that's really the best way to tell what type of a technique player this is, what type of adverse player is this, what type of a player is he in the later ends of the game. All these different aspects come into consuming talent. you're going to have to accept the fact that you're not going to know necessarily what the scheme is on every single play. Just because a particular individual gets by the guy that you're scouting does not necessarily mean that they screwed up. Sometimes the scheme in which that person was assigned to do a specific task and block a specific person, it may look as though they screwed up, but in all actuality, they did exactly what it was that they were supposed to. Maybe somebody behind them didn't do a job where that person didn't get picked up, or maybe another person was supposed to block your guy when he went in and sacked a quarterback, and you're thinking he's awesome, but in all actuality, it was just a blown play by an offensive player. All kinds of things go into this, so you're going to have to take it with a certain bit of nuance to what you're watching. You're not exactly privy to the full aspects of that scheme. So, and that comes with time. Eventually you start taking things with a little bit of grain of salt when it comes to watching some of these players play. A lot of what it is that you see on film, and this is one of the biggest caveats to watching collegiate football, and I really have to do a much better job at taking this into consideration, but a lot of what it is that you're evaluating is not going to translate to the NFL level. And that's one of the things that drives me nuts about watching college football, is that I know that in college football, the mistakes are, and you get that all the time. I get people all the time that tell me I love to watch college football over the pros because they're not a bunch of stuck-up millionaires. You know, they're not guys playing for a paycheck. Well, they're correct. They're absolutely 100% correct. The atmosphere is way more different. It's much more festive. It's much more spirited. And that needs to be that way, because that's all you have as a collegiate football consumer, because you're not watching a professional level game. And I tell people that I want to see professionals. I want to see perfection. I want to see people playing at the highest level possible. You're not going to get that in college. I'm sorry, you're just not. You don't. I am a watcher of football games where mistakes are glaring. They're very, very noticeable. In fact, if anything, a lot of mistakes that are made are embarrassing. And that margin is much more shorter in the NFL level. When it comes to collegiate football, pursuit angles get screwed up, tackling fundamentals are blown out of proportion, mental mistakes are way more, but it's amateur hour in a lot of cases. And I take that under a certain mind frame. I suspend a lot of what it is that goes on in my head when I watch college. I'm a lot more scrutinative when it comes to pro, but college, I'm just here to watch and have a good time. Okay, I'm not going to try to scrutinize as much as possible. I may take a look at a good player where somebody thinks that this guy's freaking awesome, but I'm taking a look at what he's doing thinking, I don't know if that's going to translate to the next level, because he's not going to have that type of blow-up ability when he's going up against an all-pro. So those things need to be taken into consideration. You know, poor fundamental, mental errors, pursuit angles, lack of talent that they're playing against. Those are all things that need to be taken into consideration. The margin of talent at the next level is so narrow that it's hard to kind of gauge whether that talent level is going to transition to the next level. Sometimes people just need a year or two before they actually flourish at the pro level. And then they end up becoming a phenomenal player. And where the hell this player came from? I didn't really see this in him when it came time for him to perform. When he was performing at the collegiate level. Case in point, Vontaze Burfict, phenomenal middle linebacker, was a guy who was hailed at the University of at Arizona State. And I had watched a couple of games where Vontaze Burfict played, and I remember taking a look at majority of what Vontaze Burfict did, thinking there's no way this guy's going to transition to the next level. You cannot be a free-roaming middle linebacker and be able to get away with this at the next level. I just don't really see Vontaze Burfict being that kind of a guy. And talk about a guy who pretty much didn't get drafted. Came into the league, and now he's a force to be reckoned with in that middle linebacker spot. He comes with a lot of other intangibles that I think didn't get him drafted, had a lot to do with his attitude. And some of the crap that he puts forth on the football field that gets him ejected and kicked out of games and fined. But as an overall talent, he's been phenomenal. He's a great guy that you want at middle linebacker, assuming that he's got his head screwed on right. But that was the one thing I was totally wrong on when it came to Vontaze, was my inability to evaluate his talent at the next level. What type of coaching scheme is he going to be going into when he gets drafted? What type of middle linebacker coaches do they have there? Do they have an understanding defensive coordinator that can utilize a guy like Vontaze Burfict for his talents and not so much his drawbacks? A lot of that goes into it as well, as far as scouting talent goes. So not everything that you see is going to be able to transition to the next level. One of the other things is you have to know how to consume film. You have to know what it is that you're looking at. You have to know what it is to look for. Whenever you're taking a look at footage, sometimes when it comes to a particular player, especially on third down, I do this a lot, third down, second half of football games, I'll do a lot of rewinding. I rewind back 10 seconds. I'll take a look at a formation. I'll pause it, and I'll sidestep through it, and I'll take a look at it over and over and over again to see hand technique, foot technique, foot speed. Does he have a motor? Does he have a drive? Does he stop halfway through? Is he top heavy? Does he have upper body strength but little lower body strength? Does he over pursue a lot? What type of pursuit angles does he take? And if he overtakes them, where does he screw up, and what does he need to work on? There's a lot of different things that need to be taken in consideration when it comes to looking at this stuff. So I'll end up sometimes taking a look at a particular play over and over again. Sometimes I'll take a look at it 10, 15, 20 times. You pay close attention to what it is that those guys are doing in particular schemes, in particular formations, as far as how do I break this talent evaluation situation down? How do I scout this particular player as far as his talent level goes? If he ends up blowing up a play and doing really, really well, exactly how was it that he was able to do that? Is this just more of a miscue and a mishap on an offensive player's part, or his opponent's player's part that allowed that to happen, or was this actual skill and athletic ability, or was this brute strength or solid fundamentals that are being played here? A lot of different things need to be taken into consideration when it comes to scouting talent. Another thing that I'll do, especially when it comes to the third down footage, I'll see what kind of clutch ability they have. How do they perform? How do they perform when the game is on the line? How do they perform when they're trying to stave off a team that's coming back to beat them? How do they handle third and longs? You know, how do they handle the limelight? How do they handle primetime games? You know, are they a player that's going to kind of freeze when it comes to the Saturday night lights? Or are they a person that's going to flourish, you know, actually come through and make some really, really good clutch plays? And when that person does make a clutch play, and I'm not talking big play ability, I'm talking about when they're successful at making a play under those conditions, those things have to be noted. You have to write those things down. You have to take a note. Say, hey, you know what? This guy actually had a third and 7 situation, and he was able to drop back and read the defense and able to throw to his second down check man for a completed pass for a first down. That's a big deal, man. That's a big time throw. That's a big time throw that's going to get you all kinds of kudos and marks with the NFL scouts that's going to move you up their draft board, you know. Or are you going to be able to have a good stance, throw a good rotation, but throw the ball over their head? Step into your throw just a little bit too much and put too much wind on it and end up blowing a third down conversion. Those things need to be taken into consideration too. So all those little things are things that I will post in my notes, whether it's a positive thing or whether it's a negative thing. For every highlight reel piece of footage, there's actual real full game footage, 2 or 3 plays, average plays that could tell you everything it is that you need to know about a particular talent. And those things are very, very important to take into consideration. That when you were taking a look at this talent, you kind of have to be able to consume the full game to get the nuance and the pressures that come with that the highlight reel footage doesn't necessarily show you. You have to be cognizant of down and distance, time left in a game, what quarter is it? When you're coming to scouting this talent, is this guy going to be tired? How is he going to act when he is tired? Is he going to be clutch? Is he going to come through? What's his cardio like? You know, I was reviewing a defensive lineman, 304-pound defensive lineman, 6'7", great frame. He played really, really great in the first half of his football game, but come second half, at the end of the third quarter and the fourth quarter, he was basically a non-factor. And in his notes, I posted, hey, I think his weight's a problem. He's going to have to slim down. He's going to have to pack on just a little bit more muscle. He has a lot of weight to push around. He doesn't have the foot speed. He doesn't have the foot drive. Got tremendous upper body strength, and he's virtually impossible to move. But that's in the beginning half of the game. Second half of the game, they stopped double teaming him, and they were only single covering him, and they were doing a really, really good job of running through his lanes because he was just too tired. He's not able to get out the field fast enough at 305 pounds. Those are things that certain talent evaluators are going to be able to put in their notes that you can take a look at as an average talent evaluator, scouting their talent as somebody who's looking at this stuff and say, okay, I think I'm onto something here. And you're not going to get it right the first time. That's the most important thing when it comes to any subject in this series. This is my hope to kind of help you guys when it comes to scouting talent exactly how I do it. You're not going to get it right the first time. You're going to take a look at it and say, man, I screwed up when it came to evaluating this guy. Where did I go wrong? And then maybe you'll see something. Sometimes a commentator will mention something. Commentator will say, hey, you know, this guy needs to develop a little bit more when he plays on the left-hand side of the line because your hand placement needs to be here, your arm placement needs to be there, and your foot and your drive and your hips need to go this way. And you're like, oh, wait a minute, that makes a lot of sense. That's why he can't cover the left outside shade. I get it now. So this is what I need to look for when it comes to evaluating this talent in the future. So next year, when you're taking a look at that position, you've got like 10 different prospects you're looking at. That's something you can look for. Exactly where is his hand placement? Where's his technique at? Is he turning his hips? Is he turning the upper body of his player and pushing him off to the side so you can open up a running lane for his running back? All kinds of little nuances like that. And I don't know how many times I'll watch an average game and somebody will say something. I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I never thought of that. I got to put that in my talent spreadsheet. And I'll grab a napkin and I've got a pen and I'll just write down as quickly as I possibly can what it is that's being said. And I'll try to remember to put that in my notes for my spreadsheet for the following year. And that definitely helps when it comes to talent evaluating, because then you're going to remember it and then you're going to be able to apply it, and all those things are a huge factor. Maybe that's just a bit much in what you really want to do as far as evaluating talent goes, but if you want to be serious at this, if you want to do something other than just consuming a couple minutes of highlight footage and you really kind of want to get into evaluating talent so you know what you're talking about when your team gets up to that draft board and you've got a list of names in each round that you would like to see your team draft. And I'm not talking one guy. 99% of you guys have one guy that you've got listed in the first round and the second round, and then you check out. I'm talking about first round, second round, third round, fourth round, fifth round, a list of at least 3 or 4 names in each round that you'd like to see your team pick. That way, if your team doesn't hit on one, maybe it's going to hit on another. Your hopes are a little bit higher and a little bit more about what it is that you're talking about, and it helps you out with your anxiety a little bit more, and it gives you a little bit more faith into what it is that your team's going to do should they end up picking that player, and especially if they don't. If they don't, and those players that you scouted ended up doing well, you have the ability to come back in a future video and say, see, mother effers, I told you this guy was good, and now he's playing for the Bengals and he's doing a really awesome job. I had him scouted at a 3rd round draft pick and this team picked him up at a steal in the 5th, and now look at him, he's leading the league in tackles and he's an awesome Pro Bowl type football player, and I scouted him back when he played in college. So that's going to do it for this video as far as scouting talent is concerned. Hopefully I was able to help you out with a little bit in this particular area. And I'll catch you guys next time when I come out with another video. So we'll see you.